Welcome to Escape Velocity Space News. I am your host, Dr. Pamela Gay, and I am here to put science in your brain. This week, I'm coming to you from Florida, where I have had an amazing opportunity to see the launch of Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost and iSpace's Mission 2 on a Falcon 9. I didn't get to see New Glenn launch with my own eyeballs in person due to a conflict with PodFest, which is the other reason I'm here. But all in all, it is a week of too many good options, as some pretty awesome commitments align with some pretty cool rockets. And you get a bad beige background as a result of me not being home. I should be back home next week for our next episode, and I look forward to returning to my normal camera and mic. Our entire team would like to just take a moment to send a giant congratulations to Blue Origin for all that they accomplished with their first launch of New Glenn that made it all the way to orbit. Their first stage did end up intact in the ocean, but these are still magnificent accomplishments. With both SpaceX and Blue Origin contracted to create human-carrying lunar landers, I think the space race is now on between two commercial giants that may just swap which of the companies gets us to the moon first. It's anyone's game. Anything could happen. In less awesome news, we continue to watch the fires in Los Angeles wreak havoc on so many of our colleagues' lives, with more than 200 families at JPL and Caltech losing everything to the fires. We're going to share out on our website and through our newsletter ways that you can contribute to help these folks out through funds that are being set up through Caltech and related well-known organizations. It's the kind of week where we feel the need to put joy into the world. And we've made the decision to just find stories that hopefully will put a smile on your face. And those are the ones we're going to share. And also, rockets. We're bringing you all the rocket news. This joy-filled episode will inevitably be balanced out by some future climate change story. But for today, for the next 30 minutes or so, I hope to put a smile or three on your faces. This joy-filled episode will inevitably be balanced out by future episodes on climate change. But for today, for the next 30 minutes or so, I hope to put a smile or three on your faces as we look at images taken from orbit by amateur astronomer Don Pettit and efforts to put science sites in protected lists to preserve our history of space exploration, and a whole bunch of other things that just made us grin. All this and more is coming to you right here, right now, on Escape Velocity Space News, a product of CosmoQuest, and sponsored by you through Patreon. Astronaut Don Pettit is, among many things, an amateur astronomer. One of the most delightful moments of my life was sitting at a table where Don approached National Geographic science photographer Babak Tvarshi about his problems doing astrophotography from the International Space Station, and just sitting down and brainstorming solutions. Well, it looks like that conversation and subsequent ones, I'm sure, have also happened, have fixed some of the issues that Don was struggling with. On Don's Twitter feed, which I believe is maintained by his son, we are now getting new and amazing images taken by Don from the International Space Station. On this trip, he took with him a homemade device for tracking the stars while on an object that is moving round and round the Earth rather rapidly. The Hubble Space Telescope and other orbiting observatories are able to keep themselves lined up observing the stars by using reaction wheels that align the entire satellite. That's something that's not quite possible to do with the International Space Station, so Don had to find some other solution. I haven't been able to find details on this magical device he built, but the imagery is so amazing that I'm going to eventually hunt down what he did and share it out with you. While his image of the Milky Way appearing to rise over the edge of a motion-blurred Earth is getting called perhaps the best image taken from orbit, I have to say my favorite of his recent images is one of the large and small Magellanic Clouds lined up through a window on the International Space Station. To my surprise, though, his images, just like those of all of us here on the planet, are also plagued by Starlink satellites. They just look a whole lot different. Not only are the Starlinks creating streaks in his image, but in videos they appear to flicker and flash like so many fireflies. As he writes in a December 1 tweet, "Cosmic fireflies. Actually, these are Starlink satellites momentarily flashing sunlight toward the space station," end quote. I want to be clear here. Calling Don Pettit an amateur astronomer is in no way insulting. Amateur astronomers are awesome people who make the voluntary choice to spend their free time observing the stars. There are lots of professional astronomers who, due to funding gaps, periodically find themselves involuntarily working as unpaid astronomers. But the amateur astronomers, they're out there doing science for free by choice. And these folks are periodically making really cool discoveries. One of the things that has been startling me over and over in recent years is the creativity of how amateur astronomers are using filters to get around light pollution, to reveal time-consuming details that, as professional astronomers, we never get to see because we don't have the same dedicated observing time that they have. In one new creative use of filters, a Colorado team led by Stephen Hill figured out how to combine observations from different filters used on an 11-inch telescope to map out methane and ammonia in the atmospheres of Jupiter and Saturn. That alone is reason enough to share this cool result. But that's not all. These results allowed the location of the ammonia clouds in Jupiter's atmosphere to be refined. And it turns out those clouds are lower in the atmosphere than previously thought, which makes them warmer than previously thought, which means they aren't made of ammonia ice as previously thought. Their work initially appeared in the journal Earth and Space Science last August. On January 1, in a sister publication, the Journal of Geophysical Research Planets, another team published a follow-up paper. This one was led by Patrick Irwin. And this paper confirmed those depth-defining results using ESO's very large telescope. Where the first paper used an 11-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope or a 0.28 meter telescope, these new results used the VLT, which is 8.2 meters or 323 inches in diameter. They confirmed those clouds are indeed lower and thus hotter than thought. This means they can't be ammonia ice and are most likely ammonia hydrosulfide, which would provide the same color at warmer temperatures. We now literally get to rewrite textbooks, thanks to folks who spent their personal time and money to do some science. If you want to do your own explorations of the sky and just want to pore through images without having to pour out the money for telescopes, NORLab and ESA have an opportunity for you. A new collection of imagery allows you to explore all 88 constellations of the Western culture. These free downloadable images are posted along with information on the constellations' names, key features, and even finding charts to help you navigate either the images or the actual night sky. Also released is the largest open source all-sky image ever published. With 40,000 by 20,000 pixels, you're going to have to zoom in to appreciate its detail. The sky is all there, just waiting for you to explore. Visit our website, evsn.tv, for more details and to start your own journey of digital exploration. Up next, we continue our journey through happy little stories by looking at efforts to protect our world's science sites. Oh, and the science sites on other worlds as well. Stay tuned. Our planet is dotted with old observatories and astronomical research centers that are no longer capable of doing science. Either their equipment is too small, their sky is too bright, or both. Both is always an option. I've been lucky enough to get to visit Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin, Pukova Observatory outside of Leningrad, and Lowell Observatory in Arizona with its old domes and new domes standing side by side. Each of these facilities combines amazing architecture and attention to detail that just isn't seen in today's more utilitarian facilities. As much as I love all these places, however, there is one facility that is near and dear to my heart, and I've never even got a chance to set foot in it. That observatory is the Dominion Astronomical Observatory in Ottawa. While working on my undergraduate senior project, I pored over old circulars from the observatory that contained information on variable stars in what felt like countless globular clusters. I can't tell you how many hours I spent typing all of this data into spreadsheets while trying to tease out the rate of evolution of RR stars. I went through a lot of journals from all sorts of different sources finding data. And it was the data from that Canadian facility that always seemed to be exactly what I was looking for. When I learned earlier this week that this facility is being designated a National Historical Site in Canada, it made me irrationally happy. The Dominion Observatory is a celebration of how science can be core to a nation's advancement. I'm just going to go ahead and read from the facility's citation. Constructed between 1902 and 1954, the Dominion Observatory Complex is located within another National Historic Site, Ottawa's Central Experimental Farm, on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. It is a complex of distinctive buildings whose architecture conveys the federal government's forward-looking vision at the turn of the century to establish national scientific institutions in the capital. From 1905 to 1970, the Dominion Observatory Complex served as a major center for Canadian scientific research in the field of practical astronomy and its application in the areas of surveying, time service, and geophysics. The complex also served as a site for outreach and education as researchers shared their passion for astronomy with the public through meetings of the Royal Astronomical Society, public lectures, guided tours, and Saturday evening stargazing events. Throughout its history, the research and experiments undertaken at the Dominion Observatory Complex were influential in the advancement of Canadian scientific excellence. Here's to hoping that more of the world's elder astronomy facilities find their way into the protected buildings lists. While Canada is busy protecting new sites of past science here on Earth, the World Monuments Fund is calling for the protection of more than 90 locations on the Moon, where humans and our robotic science collaborators have explored. This call for protection is especially timely as more and more nations and companies are looking to reach the surface of the Moon. It only takes one overly aggressive rover or one crashed lander to destroy the footprints of early astronauts and smash the instruments they left behind. There have been discussions of creating UN World Heritage sites on the Moon, and I, for one, hope we'll see that before human tourists become a lunar concern. And the Moon isn't the only world anthropologists are worried about protecting. A new paper in the journal Nature Astronomy, led by Justin Halcombe, reminds us that, quote, humans first reached Mars in 1971, initiating the record of human activity on the red planet. As planetary scientists plan for the future planetary protection procedures for Mars, they should also consider the developing archaeological record on one of our nearest planets. End quote. The paper argues that the rovers and other technologies that humans have scattered on the red planet represent humanity's first attempts to move beyond the planet Earth and make humans a multi-planetary species. According to Halcombe, quote, our main argument is that Homo sapiens are currently undergoing a dispersal, which first started out of Africa, reached other continents, and has now begun in off-world environments, end quote. We live at a transition point in history where we are gearing up to literally go where no human has gone before. This isn't Columbus finding America. It is the first Polynesian sailors and early humans crossing the Bering Sea on an ice bridge and finding a new world that people have never walked on. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm glad to see so many people calling for the protection of all those robots who are paving the way for humanity. For our last feel-good story of this segment, we're going to need to switch gears entirely. The scattering of video cameras all over the world as people mount them on dashboards and doorbells is allowing us to see rare events. When it comes to meteorite collecting, the amazing security cameras and other nighttime images have made it significantly easier for meteorite scientists to figure out where to find the latest rock to fall out of the sky. And now, thanks to a doorbell cam, they have also allowed us to catch one particularly close to home meteor strike. When a Prince Edward Island homeowner returned from walking their dog, they found their front walk covered in weird debris. After looking at their doorbell camera and talking to their neighbor, they began to wonder if they'd caught a meteor striking their walkway, quite literally close to their home. As fate would have it, Chris Hurd, curator of the University of Alberta's Meteorite collection, was headed to PEI on vacation and was sufficiently intrigued by the possibility it was a space rock that he offered to come out and give it a look. He and the homeowner, Joe Valadim, both collected debris, and chemical analysis showed that the statistically improbable had totally happened. A meteor struck Valadim's walkway and was caught, sound and all, on camera. As far as they've so far been able to determine, this was the first time the sound of a meteor impact has been captured. Also, it turns out that when a piece of everyday asteroid, a carbonaceous chondrite, strikes a brick walkway at 200 kilometers per hour or so, the brick wins. I'm in awe of how the walkway is mostly unaffected, while the space rock is shattered to smithereens. I, for one, welcome meteor observations by our security overlords. After a break, I'll be back with rocket news. Stay tuned. Next up, I'm pleased to welcome on aerospace correspondent Erik Madaus for this week's Tales from the Launch Pad. Please note, due to the asynchronous recording of this episode, I'm coming to you from after Blue Origin's successful orbital launch of the New Glenn and before Starship 7 makes another go at trying not to burn up on re-entry. Since Erik actually recorded earlier, I currently know more about New Glenn than he does, and since you are watching this in the future, you know more about Starship than I do. With all that in mind, it's time to pretend that I'm throwing this directly to Erik in real time by saying, "Hey Erik."
Hi Pamela. Before I start with the launches that have happened, I want to talk about some launches that haven't gone up yet as of writing and recording this episode, but are worth talking about. I'm excitedly looking forward to the New Glenn's first launch, which was supposed to happen in November of last year, but was delayed. It's now expected to happen on January 16th, pending weather at the landing area in the Atlantic Ocean. Blue Origin is making a full attempt to land the first stage from New Glenn on the rocket's first launch, something no other reusable rocket has achieved. Their CEO, Dave Limp, said the primary objective of the mission was to reach orbit. Landing would be a bonus. The other large rocket people are following, Starship, is also gearing up to make its seventh flight. Though recently, SpaceX has gone through their usual dance of stacking the stages and destacking the stages for one issue or another. And the weather is also bad, so that might not happen this week either. Flight profile for Launch 7 is expected to be identical to Flight 6, still suborbital, though SpaceX will deploy dummy Starlink satellites from Starship. Those will re-enter along with the ship in the Indian Ocean. Most excitingly, in a launch that Dr. Pamela is currently in Florida to cover as media, as I record this, is the launch of Firefly's Blue Ghost and iSpace's Resilience lunar landers on a Falcon 9 rocket, currently expected on January 15th. I'll let her tell the rest of that story. On to the rest of the launches. On December 16th, China launched the SatNet Leo 1 mission on a Long March 5B rocket. Let's watch the launch. The Long March 5B is the low Earth orbit optimized version of the heavy lift Long March 5. This variant has a small upper stage, leaving the large core stage on a suborbital trajectory so it doesn't become a hazard in orbit like previous flights. SatNet Leo is a new state-owned satellite internet constellation. The constellation will eventually consist of 13,000 satellites. On December 16th, China launched 4 more PiSat radar satellites on Long March 2D. Let's watch the launch. PiSat is a commercial company. The launch took place from the Haiwan spaceport. Also on December 16th, SpaceX launched the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 10 mission from Slick 40 in Florida. The satellite is named after Hedy Lamarr, an American actress and inventor who invented the radio technique called frequency hopping spread spectrum. Originally for torpedo guidance, it is now used in secure military communications to resist jamming, and in Bluetooth to reduce interference. Space Vehicle 10 was originally supposed to be launched on a Vulcan Centaur rocket, but was reassigned to SpaceX to get it in orbit sooner. On December 17th, SpaceX launched the NROL 149 mission from Slick 4E in California. NROL 149 was another batch of Starlink-derived intelligence satellites for the NRO's proliferated architecture. On December 17th, SpaceX launched the 7th and 8th O3B mPOWER satellites into orbit from LC-39A in Florida. Let's watch the launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Go
Vehicles fishing downrange.
Chamber pressure nominal.
This mission completed the 8-satellite constellation for SES, which will operate from medium Earth orbit and provide high-throughput communications to customers around the world. It was the first flight of a new Falcon 9 booster, Booster 1090. On December 17th, the second Kairos rocket launched from Spaceport Key in Japan. Let's watch the launch.
1-0
On board were 5 satellites for various universities and private companies. Compared to the first launch, where it exploded almost immediately, this one got further. It took off and it flew what appeared to be nominally for almost 2 minutes before spinning out of control late in the first stage burn and being destroyed by range safety. Space One released a statement following the launch apologizing to their customers and announcing an investigation into the failure. On December 19th, China launched 4 Tianqi satellites on a Series 1S rocket. The Tianqi satellites are small Internet of Things satellites used to allow various smart devices to communicate with each other. The Series 1S is a variant of the Series 1 rocket specialized for launching on an ocean platform. On December 20th, China launched the TJSW satellite into geostationary transfer orbit. Let's watch the launch. This launch marked the 100th flight of the Long March 3B. TJSW is a series of satellites China uses to develop technology as a cover for a clandestine mission. This one may be a signals intelligence satellite. On December 21st, SpaceX launched the Bandwagon 2 mission from Flick 4E in California. Let's watch the launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. Liftoff, Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Bandwagon 2.
Vehicles teaching downrange.
Bandwagon is SpaceX's brand for a dedicated satellite rideshare that goes to a mid-inclination orbit, compared to the usual nearly polar sun-synchronous orbits that transport missions go to. On this flight was another satellite for South Korea's military project 425 and Arcadia 4, a SAR satellite from Cabela Space, among others. Rocket Lab's final mission of 2024 launched on December 21st, carrying another Styx satellite into orbit from their New Zealand spaceport. Synspective bought 14 dedicated launches from Rocket Lab to put their satellites into orbit. This was the 6th. It was called All the Way Up. On December 25th, Russia launched the 5th Research P satellite into orbit on a Soyuz rocket. Let's watch the launch.
Предварительная. Промежуточная. Главное. Подъем. Прошел контакт подъема. Двигатели центрального и бытовых блоков ракеты-носителя вышли на режим главной ступени. Параметры системы управления ракеты-носителя в норме. Двигатели первой и второй ступени работают.
Research P is a commercial imaging satellite that can take images as small as 1 meter resolution. This launch was also notable for being the 2,000th flight of an R7 family rocket since 1957, an incredible achievement. On December 26th, China launched 11 CubeSats on a Kinetica 1 rocket. Unfortunately, the rocket launched attitude control during third stage burn and failed to reach orbit. On December 29th, SpaceX launched 4 micro-geo satellites into geostationary transfer orbit on a Falcon 9 rocket from Flick 4E in Florida. Let's watch the launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Go Falcon, go strong. downrange.
The 4 satellites are for 2 of Astronomers' customers, Andasat and Anuvu. Andasat will provide dedicated internet to rural regions in Peru, and the 2 satellites for Anuvu will provide internet for ships and planes. Astronomers is using the last satellite, UtilitySat, for itself to demonstrate technology for future satellites and as a temporary replacement for the first microgeo satellite, which failed in orbit several months after launch due to solar panel issues. On December 30th, Iroh launched the SpotX mission on a PSLV from their spaceport in Sriharikota. Let's watch the launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Plus 5 seconds. Liftoff normal.
SpotX, or Space Docking Experiment, consists of 2 spacecraft that will perform rendezvous and docking experiments. The 2 spacecraft will dock and undock several times and test attitude control of the combined vehicles. These are critical to India's future plans in space, mainly for their future crew spacecraft, but also a planned lunar sample return mission. We keep track of orbital launches by launch site, also called spaceport. According to RocketLaunch.live, for 2024, the United States had 142 launches, China had 68 launches, New Zealand had 13 launches, Russia had 9 launches, Kazakhstan had 8 launches, Japan had 7 launches, India had 5 launches, Iran had 4 launches, French Guiana had 3 launches, and North Korea had 1 launch. This made the total number of launches for 2024 260. That's 37 more launches than 2023. Finally, there are 9 toilets in space. Of those 260 launches, there were 6 failures, reminding us that space is hard.
Thanks, Erik. Before we go, I want to bring you a diagram of success. Over the past year, we've seen a variety of different commercial missions that do things I wouldn't necessarily consider successful. We've seen lunar landers unintentionally practice gymnastics by standing on their heads and flipping over sideways. We've seen starships blow up in a variety of different ways. Yet somehow these kinds of weird failure modes keep getting labeled successes after the fact because data has been collected. I would argue that there are a lot of times when collecting data is insufficient for declaring something as a success. This is where the iSpace list of milestones for success brings my heart joy. From successfully completing launch preparations to achieving a steady operational state on the surface of the moon, they detail 10 different items they want to accomplish and use to define success. Also releasing their goals is Firefly Aerospace. These lists allow them to say whether something was a full or partial success and to exactly what degree it was a partial success. By laying all of this out prior to launch, we get to go on this journey with them, knowing exactly what to look for. As someone who has graded countless papers, this reminds me of a grading rubric. And an education professor can tell you that the fairest way to grade a project is with a rubric the students have ahead of time that lays out exactly what they have to accomplish to succeed. What's good for students in this case is also good for starships and other spacecraft. And I really hope that one day we see this kind of success metric for every mission before it gets launched. And that's it for now. Good night, everyone. And remember to go out and look up. Oh, and please give this video a like and subscribe so the algorithm will let you and others know when new episodes are available.